Good, good. Brothers, how y'all doing? Good, good, good. We got a class for y'all today. I went over a lot of, did a little bit of research, not too much, regarding South Africa. I was touching on that. We got a few calls regarding South Africa, so I had to sit down and examine it. So today we're going to discuss the relationship between South Africa and Black America. I'm going to talk about that in brief. I'm going to open up with a video first. What's your name, young man? Eliel and Enoch. Okay. Let's open up. I want the Jews of Black Part 2. Show me that video. The Jews of Black Part 2. Yeah, that's it. It's only 4 minutes, but I want y'all to pay attention, and I'm going to ask y'all some questions about this video. Roll the tape.
Concentrated in the shadow of the Soutpansberg Mountains in the far north of South Africa. To the casual observer, they look and live much like any other traditional Southern African community. But if you scratch below the surface, there are some intriguing differences.
Here I am in South Africa, and there are these men wearing skull caps and talit, shoulder wraps. You would see this in any synagogue in America or Israel, but I never thought I'd see it here in South Africa.
I want to find out how these people seem to have Jewish customs. Samuel Moeti is president of the Lemba Cultural Association.
Pleasure.
So, I'll be honest, I came into this village and the first word I heard was shalom,
Yes.
a Hebrew word.
Yes.
How is that possible? How is it that the Lemba are speaking Hebrew?
The Lembas are the original Hebrews, and they were scattered, as you know, and they crossed into Africa. So they were scattered all over. So in South Africa, in many parts of South Africa, you find the Lembas who are actually Hebrews.
Hebrew. So the Lembas claim to be descendants of ancient Israelites?
Not claim, they are.
They are?
They are.
Okay.
We are the original African Hebrew. We are scattered all over.
Can you give me a few examples of some of the Jewish
Yes,
foods?
we don't partake of pork.
Okay.
We don't mix milk with meat.
It sounds to me like the Lemba have a unique culture surrounded by others who do not practice the same way.
That is correct. We always believe that the Jewish people who live all over the world are our brothers because we come from the same root.
Could it be that the Lemba are a lost tribe of Israel? To answer, perhaps the Lemba's oral history, handed down over the generations, can help us make a connection to the lost tribes of Israel. The Lemba's story goes like this. Thousands of years ago, they were forced out of Israel and settled in a place called Senna, which is believed to be the present-day Yemen. There, they lived as traders and craftsmen until war or natural disaster pushed them across the Red Sea and into Africa. Then began a slow migration south. Along the way, according to the Lemba, they built great stone cities. It's a claim that's fascinating. Himmler is convinced that Lemba ancestors did indeed come from the Middle East. I'm excited to get back to the Lemba to see what they make of this. And I've got the perfect opportunity. It's the Lemba's annual festival, and I've been invited. It's hard to believe that these people, who to the casual observer look just like the other African communities they live among, actually do have DNA passed down from Middle Eastern forefathers. This proves that when it comes to race, looks really can be deceiving. This annual festival is a chance for the oral history and traditional songs of the Lemba to be passed on to the next generation. This song tells the story of the Lemba's journey all the way from Israel to South Africa. Having traced this journey, I'm eager to hear what Samuel Moeti thinks about the DNA evidence.
So the genetic testing actually proved to the doubters what you and your forefathers have been saying for generations. That must be exciting news.
It is.
I'll be honest, I hadn't heard of the Lemba. I knew very little about the people. But having spent time making the journey from Jerusalem down through Zimbabwe, having spent time here at this festival, seeing what your people are all about, I can only sum it up in one word, and it's shalom.
Shalom.
We've seen how science has backed up the claims of the Lemba in the face of years of doubt and prejudice. The archaeological clues, the DNA evidence, and the Lemba's own oral history add up to a very convincing argument. It reminds me that first impressions can often be misleading. It was hard to believe that a tribe of black Africans could be the descendants of ancient Israelites. But that's exactly what they appear to be.
Brothers and sisters, they are there. We are not lost. We are scattered. We are original Hebrew.
Well, all righty then. Now, I had a lot of issues with the video. Now, I seen this years ago. A lot of issues with it. Number one, the white man's the devil. Always, if you have any doubts, just remember that thing. Keep that in your mind and examine. Give me 1 Timothy 6:20. Y'all in that DNA testing garbage, I'm going to tell you, it's garbage. In order to do a DNA test on anything, like when a woman says, he my baby daddy, they have to test the DNA of the baby to who, brothers? To the father. If you make a racial claim about being Israel, you have to compare that DNA of the people to the Israelites. Y'all understand that? That's how it's all garbage. Read that for me, Captain.
1 Timothy 6:20. O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science, falsely so called.
Avoid oppositions of science, falsely so called. See, y'all got to know this white man. I thought to myself, I said, what would be the benefit of saying that the people in South Africa are Jews? Allowing a white man to walk around and do all that. Remember, a lot of them in Johannesburg. White folks I'm talking about. Then it said, diamonds. Diamonds. The white man is always looking for a foot in. He's the devil. I'm telling you, he is the devil. Then the Jakes there had yarmulkes on. Yarmulke is not a law in the Bible. That's not in there. Or that little stupid shawl with the titsits. It's not biblical. How did they get that? The white man. That's how they got it. So I'm sitting, I said, this is some damn crap here. What are you going to say, Athan?
I was going to say they'll say the Israelites based upon taking the white man's spit in a jar and go, oh yeah, it matches with ours. Yeah, you're Jews.
Exactly.
That ain't biblical.
Not biblical. Not understand that. Just because somebody says it or Esau science says it so, it's not biblical. Yeah.
And also, it did another thing also, a DNA hoax. Woman went to a lab, three different labs, and got 3 different answers. The guy said to her, it's a hoax. It's based on percentage. It's 2%, 5%. It's a test based on hope. And she said that if you cannot go beyond the grandparents. Once you go beyond the grandparents, it's like probabilities, rolling the dice.
Right. Hey, can you look that up for me? Look up DNA hoax. Remember what the Bible said. Avoid oppositions of science, falsely so-called. Some of y'all running around believing in this DNA stuff. The devil even came out and said, stop believing in that thing. That's how they get money off of black people who don't know who they are. Come on.
DNA testing can determine where in Africa our forebears were from. Among those using the test to trace their family's past, Spike Lee, Oprah Winfrey, and actor Isaiah Washington, one of the stars of Grey's Anatomy.
Brother Washington, your mitochondrial DNA is quite common among the Mende and Temne people in Sierra Leone.
You got to just pause before you play anything else after that. You just got to just sit there and just let that marinate, because that just saw is complete buffoonery.
Let me tell you something. You ask black, we've done the test. Black people say, like when we was in family, we asked him, you from, he said, brother, I'm from Africa. I said, you know there's about 3,000 tribes there. Which one? He go, I don't know. So I started naming some, and he goes, well, I don't know. I said, all right then, shut the hell up with that. This is the same thing. Talk about Sierra Leone. He don't know nothing about no damn Sierra Leone. Come on. Yeah, watch this Negro here.
If you think about young African Americans growing up thinking that the history started with slavery, I mean, how do you think that impacts their psyche? We went through slavery. We didn't start with slavery.
To Vi Higginson, the prospect of tracing even a tiny fraction of her ancestry back to Africa was enthralling. 60 Minutes sent her DNA to African Ancestry, as well as to several other genetic genealogy companies, to see what they could tell us about Vi's maternal lineage.
I'm sitting on the edge of my seat.
Kittle's company sent Vi what they call a certificate of ancestry.
Oh my God.
It says
God.
that you share maternal genetic ancestry with people from the Mende tribe in Sierra Leone. Do you know anything about Sierra Leone or the Mende people?
No.
Nothing.
Nothing.
People have been waiting a lifetime for something like this. Now, this is just a tiny bit of information now.
But they take it as huge.
Right, because it's cracking open the door that was closed for centuries.
There's a place in Africa you could say that I'm from. A tribe. I am thrilled. It puts a name, a place, a location, a people. It opens up such possibilities.
But the problem is, Sierra Leone wasn't the only answer Vi got. A company called Relative Genetics found a match to a single person in the Wobi tribe in the Ivory Coast.
Different?
Different.
Now, I got all excited about that, and this is different. Now, how could that happen?
Then a third company, Trace Genetics. Your particular sequence matches sequences reported among multiple Mendenka individuals in Senegal.
What's up with this?
And Family Tree DNA, the company that linked Vi with Marion in the first place, came up with a whole list of matches. This goes on and on.
My goodness.
So what do we know about Vi's ancestry? The DNA does indicate that she has distant relatives in the Mende tribe, but she also has relatives in all those other tribes. So no one can say for sure where Vi's maternal ancestor actually came from. When I handed Vi the certificate, she got extremely emotional about it. She wept, and it meant so very much.
People want to believe.
They want to believe they've gotten an answer.
And it's not fair of us to let them believe that we're giving them certain answers, because scientifically, we just can't.
Hank Greeley is concerned that the science isn't really there yet for you to be giving them the name of a tribe.
I think for most companies, I would be concerned too.
But what about your own company?
We have
He
the
didn't
largest...
exclude you. He included you.
But we have the largest set of sequences from Africa. And so with that, we're able to provide some level of probability in terms of frequency.
But he would say that even though you have the largest database, it's still small on the scope of things.
As I said, I share those concerns.
About yourself.
Our DNA.
And that's the rub. This business of genetic genealogy is fraught with limitations. For one thing, it can only provide information about a tiny fraction of our ancestry. Because we get half our DNA from our mothers and half from our fathers, almost all of our DNA gets shuffled and remixed every generation, making it impossible to trace what comes from whom. There are just 2 bits of DNA that remain pure: the Y chromosome, which passes directly from father to son, and something called mitochondrial DNA, which passes unchanged from mother to child. Hank Greeley, a law professor at Stanford University, has studied this new field. He worries that people don't realize just how many ancestors they actually have.
8 generations ago, both you and I had 256 great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents.
Wait, you're saying that if you go back 8 generations, we have 256 great-great-great-grandparents?
Yes, it doubles every generation. So you've got 2 parents, you have 4 grandparents, you have 8 great-grandparents, 16 great-great-grandparents, and it adds up fast. It adds up so fast, in fact, that if you go back 20 generations, you've got over 1 million grandparents.
1,048,576 to be exact. And in each generation, DNA testing can provide information about only 2 of them.
So you could be Peruvian on your mother's 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 side, Japanese on your father's 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 side, Swedish on everything else.
And you'll never know.
And you'll never know the Swedish from the Y chromosome or the mitochondrial DNA.
Now, you've looked at several of these companies that are doing these tests.
Yes.
Do you think that they explain what you just explained to us?
No, I don't think any of them does as good a job of pointing out the limitations. But, you know, businesses often don't go around telling you how weak their product is.
We don't oversell. I mean, we just say, look, we provide a service. If you're interested in exploring a tiny bit of your DNA and trace its ancestry, we can do that.
When you say it's a tiny little amount,
It's less than 0.1%.
and that's pretty teeny.
Yeah, but for people who know nothing about any of them, I think it's very important.
So you heard it from the white man. It's BS. You get two parents, each generation multiplies. You know you got a mother and a father, right? Then they got a mother and a father. He got a mother and a father, and it multiplies. That's where it gets to millions and millions. Impossible. Can you read that for us? 1 Timothy 6:20.
1 Timothy chapter
And
6.
this is for you sisters, because there ain't too much the brothers running around getting DNA. It's these women. They're sending emails. I just had my DNA test. Sister, you simple as hell. Read that.
1 Timothy 6:20. O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings, and oppositions of science falsely so called.
Opposition. You know what opposition means? It opposes God's word. That's what opposition means. It opposes the word of God. Science falsely so called. Give me Isaiah 34:16, please. We have to stick in the Bibles. Esau wants us to leave the Bible and depend on his science. Another thing, the Bible's heavy about science because it also says, let me tell you, before you get there, Captain Isaac, give me Matthew 24. If it were possible, it will deceive the very elect. Give me that. Give me that. I'm going to show you about their science. Matthew 24, verse 24.
Matthew 24 and verse 24.
I'm going to show you our science again. Go ahead.
For there shall arise false Christs.
That's the white man. Set himself up as a false Christ. Go ahead.
And false prophets.
That's his ministers, preachers, and popes. Go ahead.
And shall show great signs and wonders.
These fake Christians shall show great signs
and wonders.
And wonders. Go ahead.
In so much that
if it was what?
If it were possible.
If it were possible.
They shall deceive the very elect.
But what does that mean? So right now, half the room in here is thinking, wop baba loobop or wop ben laying and speaking in tongues. That ain't what it's talking about. When it talks about showing great signs and wonders, it's talking about white man's science. I'm gonna prove it now. Give me Revelation 13. Remember, keep write this word down. Write these words down. Great signs and wonders. What is it talking about? Revelation 13. Revelation 13. And we want verse 13.
Revelation 13 and 13. And he doeth great wonders.
See, there's that word. Remember, Christ said it should show great signs and wonders. You read it again.
And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men.
That was 1945, the dropping of the atom bomb. So the wonders that he was talking about here is what? Science. Science. He's not talking about Jimmy Swaggart or name some of these other Rex Humboldt putting hands, I got healed of cancer. He ain't talking about that. Christ is talking about major wonders that the world will believe. Technology, Esau's science. Read it again for us.
And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men.
Watch this. Showing you that this is saying the same thing as Matthew 24:24. Go ahead.
And deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles.
What miracles? Science. Dropping of the atom bomb was a miracle. Fire from heaven was a miracle. Come on.
Which he had power to do in the sight of the beast.
The beast there is talking about the white man. The beast that had 7 heads and 10 horns. Go ahead.
Saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast.
The image made to the white man was Caesar Borgia's image as Jesus Christ. Go ahead.
Which had the wound by a sword and did live.
Because Rome fell and was renaissanced, resurrected again under the Renaissance period. Go ahead.
And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast.
The life they gave that image is the life of Christ. So Leonardo da Vinci painted a painting of a Renaissance Jesus of Caesar Borgia, and they said, let's call him Jesus Christ. Go ahead.
That the image of the beast should both speak.
Every year that image speaks through their movies, their TV shows, their radio broadcasts. Go ahead.
And cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed.
That's the history. Whoever did of our people that did not worship the white man as Jesus, they killed us. Now go back to Matthew 24 again, saying the same thing.
Matthew 24:24. For there shall arise false Christs.
That's the white man as Jesus Christ.
And false prophets.
His ministers, popes, and preachers.
And shall show great signs and wonders.
The great signs and wonders, as we proved, is his science, his technology. You want to get healed of cancer? Who do we run to? The white man. We go to his little laboratories. Can you hear? I got cancer. You got, name some of these things. You got a Zika virus? Run to the white man. You got Ebola? Run to the white man. You got bird flu? Run to the white man. You got diabetes? Run to the white man. You got a leg broke? Run to the white man. Your teeth is crooked? Run to the white man. Your hair falling out? Run to the white man. So everybody glorifies this man on earth as God. This is what Christ is talking about. Read it again.
For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets.
Now, ain't nobody saying if you got a problem, don't go to the white man. That's not what I'm saying. It's going to be explained right here what Christ is saying.
And shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if
it were what?
Possible.
If it were possible. If it were possible, what would happen?
They shall deceive the very elect.
That the elect would be deceived. Because the vast majority of the world believes the white man is God because of his scientific technology. 1903, the Wright brothers created the first airplane. They said, surely God is with them. 1969, landed on the moon. They said, surely God is with them. 1945, they dropped the atom bomb. Surely God is with them. That's why they say, God bless America. Everyone says, God bless America. And everybody believes this thing. But Christ said, if it were possible, the elect would be deceived. Let's see who the elect is. Give me that in Isaiah. Was it 43 or 45? 45 and 4. Thank you. Who is the elect? Is all nations the elect? Let's see.
Isaiah chapter 45 and verse 4. For Jacob, my servant's sake, and Israel, mine elect.
So the elect are the Israelites. So back to Matthew 24. One more again. I don't want to forget this thought right here.
Matthew 24:24. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect.
And this is why people believe that America is a Christian society. They say it was based and built upon Christian principles. That's a lie. The people that wrote the Constitution, Christian principles, that's a lie. But people believe that. They have all this scientific technology. People believe that God is with them. No, God is not with them. Give me that Matthew 4 and 4. Who's with them? It's Matthew 4 where Satan took Christ up. It ain't verse 4. It's below that. Where Satan says to Christ, all this will you have.
Verse 8. Matthew chapter 4 and verse 8.
Yes.
Again, the devil taketh him up into an exceeding high mountain, and showeth him all the kingdoms of the world, and the glory of them, and saith unto him, all these things will I give thee, if thou wilt fall down and worship me.
So the devil told Christ, I'll give you all the kingdoms of the world and the wealth of the kingdoms of the world, if you fall down and worship me. You better take a look at it. You better stop, take a minute, and think how the white man got all this power in the earth. I'll leave that right there. Give me Isaiah 34:16. So, back to our brothers and sisters in South Africa. So they said, due to DNA testing, they are Jews. Listen, it's a hoax. The white man has a motive to get up in there and get some more diamonds and gold and oil. Don't fall for that. So, and dismiss it. The yarmulke's proof that the white man touched them, and a stupid shawl of prayer shawls is a hoax. Watch this, Isaiah 34:16.
Isaiah chapter 34, verse 16.
Now, for those of you from South Africa, don't cut off the TV yet. Just hold on. Just wait. Just wait. I just had to shut down the white man first. Just bear with me. Go ahead.
Isaiah 34:16. Seek ye out of the book of the Lord. And
That's
read.
what you got to do. Seek ye out of the book of the Lord and what?
And read.
And read. Go ahead.
No one of these shall fail.
Meaning none of the prophecies in the Bible shall fail. So if you want to know something, if it's in here, believe it. Go ahead.
None shall want her mate.
You cannot mate the Bible with no other book. Not the Quran, not the Egyptian Book of the Dead, not the Talmud. You can't mix them. Go ahead.
For my mouth it hath commanded.
God's mouth has commanded these words. Go ahead.
And his spirit it hath gathered them.
And God's spirit has gathered these words. Was that the verse I wanted? That was it?
Yes, sir.
Give me now. Give me Deuteronomy 28. This will prove or disprove whether or not the blacks in South Africa are indeed Israelites. Let's see what the word of God says. Come on. Deuteronomy 28:15.
Deuteronomy 28:15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
Jump to verse 46 now.
Verse 46. And they shall be upon thee for a sign.
Meaning the curses in this Bible shall be upon the Israelites for a sign that they are the Israelites. Go ahead.
And for a wonder.
And for a wonder.
And upon thy seed forever.
And upon your children forever. Verse 64. I'm just jumping to some points. 64.
Verse 64. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people.
Now the brother in the video, he said, we're not lost, we were scattered. Okay, so he made that statement. That is a biblical statement. Go ahead, read it again.
From the one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone.
Now, let me give the precept for that. The precept for verse 64, write this down, is Luke 21, verse 24. Give me that. And then we're coming right back to Deuteronomy. We're coming right back here. So what we're doing now is trying to verify whether it's fact or fiction, whether the blacks in South Africa are Israelites. We got to do it through biblical examination. Come on.
Luke 21:24. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword.
The Israelites shall fall by the edge of the sword.
And shall be led away captive into all nations.
That's what Moses said in Deuteronomy 28, verse 64. We just read that. Go ahead.
And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled.
Okay. So Christ backed up what Moses said about Israel shall be scattered in slavery. And that's what the brother on the video said. He said, we're not lost, we've been scattered. Okay. Oh, that's so far so true. Back to Deuteronomy 28 now. Deuteronomy 28, verse 68, please.
Deuteronomy 28, verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again.
Write this down. The word Egypt means house of bondage. Give me the precept, please, in Exodus 20. Thank you, verse 2. Exodus 20, verse 2. Here's the precept for Egypt.
Exodus 20, verse 2. I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage.
This is how we know what Egypt means. It's synonymous for house of bondage. No, Egypt does not mean faces burnt. That's Ethiopia. That means faces burnt. People always get them mixed up. Back to Deuteronomy 28:68, please.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
Okay, slave ships. Bring you into bondage with slave ships. Go ahead.
By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. And there,
once you got off the slave ships,
ye shall be sold unto your enemies.
You shall be sold unto your enemies.
For bond men.
For slave men.
And bond women.
And slave women.
And no man shall buy you.
And no man shall buy you, meaning save you from that condition. Give me Isaiah 22, 18 and 19, please. Write these down. Write these down.
Isaiah chapter 22 and verse 18. He will surely violently turn and toss thee like a ball into a large country.
So going from one country to a next on slave ships, it's like you're a ball on the ocean seas, being violently tossed to and fro. I don't know how many of you ever played with a ball and threw it on the water and it bounces, okay, and it gets pulled here and there depending on the ripple of the water. Read it again, Captain.
He will surely violently turn and toss thee like a ball into a large country.
The large country we read about here is America. Go ahead.
There shalt thou die, and there the chariots of thy glory shall be the shame of thy Lord's house.
Our military shall be finished. Go ahead.
And I will drive thee from thy station.
We went from being a top nation to the lowest nation. Go ahead.
And from thy state shall he pull thee down.
Thy state, meaning the state of rulership we were in, the Most High said he's going to pull us down. Was that it?
Yes, sir.
Now, give me the next video. Slaves. Pay attention. I want the one that says slaves who died in 1794. So we read some of the curses in the Bible. Let's see if it fits the people in South Africa. December 1794, a South Jose slave ship was wrecked near the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa. More than half of the 400 slaves aboard died in the rough sea.
The reason I'm here and the ceremony or ritual was to acknowledge those people, those Africans, those human beings that died on the South Jose. What we did was ritualistically essentially brought those people back home, because the soil that we had this morning was from their homeland. And so we was taking them back home. And hopefully in those turbulent seas, they can find some sense of peace and comfort in knowing that some of their home is there with them.
What we wanted was to be able to focus on one ship, to, in essence, humanize the story, to reduce it to a scale so that people will not just, it will not just wash over them, but they'll stop and think of these people as children, as fathers, as mothers.
The South Jose shipwreck site is quite different from a normal sort of Hollywood idea of a shipwreck site. The first thing that strikes you is the rocks. So a lot of the material that we're looking for is covered in sand and is stuck in between the rocks on the reef.
My emotions when I first dove this shipwreck and the feelings that it really overwhelmed me. It kind of bubbles me up right now emotionally. When I touched it, it was a sense of hearing those voices again, those screams and the agony that they went through during that experience.
This is in South Africa. The shipwreck is on
the objects we've recovered so far mainly include ballast blocks. We've got a pulley block. We've got some ship's fastenings. Iron ballast was often used in slave ships. The reason being that slave ships, the cargo that they carried, human beings, was a movable cargo, and you needed to keep your ship stable.
So our goal is to do long-term dives on the South Jose to make sure that we found all the artifacts that we can, and then we'll make sure that some of those are displayed in Washington over time.
I think by telling this human story, we face our history as a people, as a humanity, and we're able to reconcile it, those crimes against humanity, if you will, and go forward in a more powerful, enlightened, more human way in terms of how we interact with each other.
Okay, go to the next video. So that slave ship was taken from Mozambique. It was shipwrecked further away from Mozambique, near the southern tip. Mozambique is in South Africa, by the way. Give me the next video called Artifacts. Right there.
Can you give us some background on this particular slave ship and tell us why it is of such historical significance?
This particular ship, as you already indicated, was one of the earliest vessels to go and purchase slaves in Mozambique for the plantations in Brazil. And what we found out so far is that she, was carrying quite a lot of slaves for a small vessel, it's important for us because it's the first time that anyone has looked archaeologically at a shipwreck that has had slaves on it at the time it was wrecked.
There were some precious relics pulled from the ocean bed, Jaco, but diving in this particular location has been extremely difficult. Tell us why.
It's like a fairly shallow area, and the ship got stuck between two rocks, so it broke up between two reefs, which makes it difficult because just behind the two reefs there's another reef, and as the swell comes in, it picks up from that reef and brings in quite a large sort of swell right up to the beach front. And if you happen to be in between the two reefs working there, it becomes a bit tricky sometimes. So we've got to choose our times when we work on the site quite carefully because it can be quite rough. It's been likened to being in a washing machine.
You've been working on this project for some years now. Why keep it under wraps for this long, Jaco?
Well, we had to find out with all the clues and all the information whether it is the ship we thought it was. So we had to be certain that this is the vessel before we make announcements like these.
And how did you piece it all together and confirm that this was indeed the ship that you were looking for?
We were fortunate enough to come across an archival account where the captain had made a testimony to a lawyer at the time. And in this account he gives us a blow-by-blow account of what happened. And that led us to the area where the shipwreck is currently. When we dived on the wreck, we found the artifacts that we found was consistent with the time period. We also found iron ballast blocks, which is a signifier sometimes of slave ships. We also found timber that comes from Mozambique, which is a bit of a smoking gun in this situation. So all the clues put together pointed towards the San Jose.
This kind of project involved a great deal of international collaboration. Will we be seeing more of this in future, perhaps?
Yes, I certainly hope so. We've got quite a few shipwrecks on our list that we want to look at, and we also want to go outside of South Africa, obviously. So it's a sort of international project in that sense as well. It's not just focused on one shipwreck; it's focused on the slave trade as such. So we'll do the triangular research in a sense: South Africa, Mozambique, Brazil, and then of course the USA as well.
All right, we understand that these artifacts will be on the way to the United States soon. Will they be put on view for the South African public? And how accessible to the public will they be made, Jaco?
They're already on view. We just opened up a small exhibition yesterday. So there are some objects on display at the Zico Slave Lodge in Cape Town. So members of the public are welcome to go and have a look at that. The items are going across to the Smithsonian on a loan period, so once they're done there, they will come back to South Africa because it does belong to the people of South Africa. We will also be hopefully recovering more items which we can then also exhibit in South Africa.
Thank you, Jaco, for your time on the PM News Desk. It was a pleasure chatting with you. That was Jaco Boshoff. He's the maritime archaeologist at Iziko Museums of South Africa and coordinator of the Slave Wrecks Project.
Well, all righty then. So, do they fit the curses that we just read, brothers? Yes, they do. So that proves, now we can say the people in Mozambique and South Africa are Israel. Not because of no damn DNA testing, but because they fit the curses that the Bible speaks of. Now,
wait a minute, Bishop. Now, that's a different area, right, of Africa. White man, he's not on that side talking about they're the Jews. You want to know why? Because the diamonds ain't over there.
Yeah, the ones we saw at the limit further down.
Right.
But that's still South Africa according to the way Britain sliced it up, divided it up. Give me Revelation 13:17. So the slave ship from Mozambique, which is on the east side of South Africa, was going from there to Brazil, and hence from Brazil to the United States. What?
And also, in the African Burial Ground exhibit in New York, they show the slave routes, and they show Mozambique. It shows a route going into the Americas as well. The southern part, it shows an arrow pointing from that exact same area to the Americas. So Israel's definitely over there.
So you know what that means, brothers? We got to step up our teaching. Because for many years, and can you tell them about the original 12 tribes sign? Because a lot of them probably don't know. I mentioned it to you, and you almost forgot, but you remembered.
Yeah, I remember when you... I got the paperwork. I got to find it. One of them say that Judah was from Iraq to the Mediterranean Sea. That's
that was
right.
the original.
That was the original one.
Because in the school, it didn't say American blacks. That was changed later on to make it more easily understood. But the original it gave the location of Judah from from Iraq to the Mediterranean. That's what
that was one of them. I'm trying to remember the rest, but I remember that one.
Right. So give me Revelation 13:17, please.
Yeah. Say something real quick, Bishop. Everybody probably knows who this woman is, but Sarah J. Bartman, Venus Hottentot, she was from South Africa too as well. So there's more proof.
Exactly. Y'all heard about Hottentot Venus, Sarah J. Bartman? If you could find something on her. Revelation 13:17 real quick.
Revelation chapter 13, verse 17. And that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name.
Now, why he go there? Why is he reading that? What does that have to do with what we are reading or going over today? It has everything to do with it. Everything. The question is, buying and selling what? Is it buying and selling Snicker bars? Adidas sneakers? Give me the precept. Give me Revelation 18, please. We coming right back here. Revelation 18, start at verse 3. We're going to read down.
Revelation chapter 18 and verse 3.
Watch this.
For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication.
The first thing y'all need to understand in your understanding is that all nations have drunk of the wine. Let's find out what the wine of the wrath is first. Isaac, real quick, give me Micah 2:11, please. I always got to backtrack. So I can't always assume that everybody knows exactly what we're saying. Write this down. To understand wine, the word wine can be used in two forms in the Bible. It can be literal or it can be metaphoric, a similitude.
Micah chapter 2 and verse 11. If a man walking in the spirit and falsehood do lie, saying, I will prophesy unto thee of wine and of strong drink, he shall even be the prophet of this people.
Right, read it again.
If a man walking in the spirit and falsehood do lie, saying.
See that? Walking in the spirit and falsehood do lie.
Saying, I will prophesy unto thee of wine.
I will prophesy unto thee of wine. That's what I want. That's all I wanted. To show you that the term wine can be used in terms of lying or falsehood. Y'all with me so far? Let's go back.
Revelation 18 and 3. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication.
So all nations have drunk of the lies or falsehood of the wrath of America's fornication. That's what it's talking about. Go ahead.
And the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. And the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies.
Pause right there. Y'all see that part? It says, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. Meaning, what the philosophies and doctrines that America put forth, all the kings of the earth were in agreement with it. All the kings of the earth were in agreement with what America, or I word it like this, what the white man dictated. What America, the white man put forth, all the nations said, kan, Adawan, kan. That's what they did. Read on.
And I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people.
Now, the message is to us who are here in Babylon, come out of Babylon, my people. Go ahead.
That ye be not partakers of her sins.
That you don't be partakers of her sins. Meaning all the lies and philosophies here, Don't be partakers with it. Separate yourselves from it. That's what he's saying. Come on.
And that ye receive not of her plagues.
Come on, why? Because by you accepting the philosophies here, you shall receive of her plagues, meaning the destruction, the plagues that are here, coming here. Go ahead.
For her sins have reached unto heaven.
Yeah, they landed on the moon in 1969. Go ahead.
And God hath remembered her iniquities. Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her double according to her works.
So God's going to repay this place back double what they did to the Israelites. Come on.
In the cup which she hath filled to her double. How much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. For she saith in her heart,
watch this, go ahead.
I sit a queen.
Like that Statue of Liberty holding a beacon with the crown on her head. She says, I sit a queen. Go ahead.
And am no widow.
And am no widow. I will never see the loss of children. Go ahead.
And shall see no sorrow. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day.
This place is set up for one particular day. Go ahead.
Death and mourning and famine. And she shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Lord God who judges her.
So the judgment for this place is it shall be burned with fire. What kind of fire? Thermonuclear fire. Go ahead.
And the kings of the earth.
Watch, it goes back to the kings of the earth. Remember what the slave trade involved. The kings of the earth. It was not just the white man. It was the white man. It was the Arab man. It was the African man. It was the Arab man. It was the Iraqi man, Iranian man, Chinese man, Japanese man. All nations took part in this. Watch, it's going to say that. Go ahead.
And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come.
1 hour this place is going to be destroyed. Watch this.
And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her.
Now the merchants of the earth are the merchants under the kings of the nations. Remember, each nation has merchants that they give me the word, that they have set up, corporations, things of that nature. Go ahead.
And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore.
What is their merchandise? It's going to explain what their merchandise is. Remember where we started. Revelation 13 said that no man might buy or sell. Buy or sell what? He's going to explain it right now.
The merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones.
And remember, when he's talking about the merchants of the earth, is he talking about some ragamuffin on a corner buying a silver chain? He's not talking about, he's talking about big business. You understand this? Millions and billions of dollars in trade, imports and exports. You men understand that? We got to expand our thought horizon. Come on.
The merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones and of pearls and fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet and in all thyine wood and all manner vessels of ivory and all manner vessels of most precious wood and of brass and iron and marble and cinnamon and odors and ointments and frankincense and wine and oil and fine flour and wheat and beasts and sheep and horses and chariots.
Here it comes.
And slaves.
And what?
And slaves and souls of men.
That's what was being bought and sold. Slaves and souls of men. That's what the Bible is talking about. We were the imports and exports. We were the merchandise that the merchants were selling. It was us. That's why the Lord said, come out from among them, my people. Because we were sold here. Everybody understand that? So that's why, in the show that the white man is the devil the Bible speaks of, when you go back to Revelation 13:17, one more again, bear with me a second, y'all.
Revelation 13:17.
To show you that the white man is the big honcho, the HNIC, here it come.
And that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name.
Whatever nation that did not agree with what the white man's philosophy was, or is, he puts an embargo on you. He puts sanctions on you to make sure you do what he says. That's what the IMF is about. What is it? International Monetary Funds. And all that stuff is here in Washington, D.C., in America. You don't want to do what we say? We're going to shut your banking system down. Boom! That's what they did. That's what they do to this day. Russia, you don't want to do what we say? We cutting you off from all trade with any other country. That's what they did with Cuba. That's what they do. So the Bible's telling you relevant things historically has happened and is still relevant to this day. Everybody understand that? What are you going to say, Elsa?
Exactly. Now, what the bishop was bringing out, he was pointing out about the kings of the earth, right? All of the kings of the earth are involved in this trade. And part of the merchandise that was being traded was us. Did we not read that? Let me give a precept that backs that up clearly. Psalms 83. Because all of the kingdoms of the earth had to drink the wine of the wrath of Edom's fornication. So all of the kings had to get in bed with her.
Psalms 83 and verse 1. Keep not thy silence, O God. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head.
Now God is getting ready to name the enemies of Israel. And watch all of the nations that's going to come out of it. Read.
They have taken crafty counsel against thy people.
All of the nations in this chapter have taken crafty counsel against us, because who led them? The first nation that is going to name is Edom. So all of them had to follow along what Edom wanted. Go ahead.
They have taken crafty counsel against thy people.
They, meaning all of the nations, agreeing with America's policies, agreeing with Esau's policies, have taken crafty counsel. Go ahead.
And consulted against thine hidden ones.
Have taken crafty counsel against the Israelites, and have consulted against thine hidden ones. All of the nations have hidden us. They're all taking part in hiding us in terms of us being the Israelites. Read.
They have said, come, and let us cut them off from being a nation.
All of the nations had to agree with America in cutting us off from being a nation. This is saying the exact same thing that we just read out of Revelation. Go ahead.
That the name of Israel.
They all agreed that the name of Israel
may be no more in remembrance.
May be no more in Israel's mind. That's the reason why you're calling yourselves everything else except Israel. Because all of the nations got in bed with the big mama, America, and said, if you're gonna enjoy any kind of exports and imports, you have to agree with me. And my number one thing is keep Israel blank in their mind in terms of who they are. So all of the nations agreed with that. That's really it. Because when you're going, go ahead.
For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee.
They are confederate against thee, against us. Confederate meaning they are in agreement. So they agreed, like what you was reading earlier. They took the mark, so you can understand.
The mark is the philosophy.
Right, that's what it's talking about.
Their policies.
Their policies. They had to agree with that. Go ahead.
The tabernacles of Edom.
He's the top one. That's the reason why it names him first, because everybody else had to get in bed with them.
Right, and showing that the buying and selling, it's not talking about going to a corner store and buying Pampers or milk. To show it's not talking about that. If you all remember when we was at Poland, they put a sanction on Iran. But the way how they put the sanction is electronically.
Oh, in Iran.
In Iran. They put a sanction in Iran, and what they did, Iran couldn't buy and sell around the world no more, because the way how you got to buy and sell, like if you buying something that worth millions of dollars, you understand? You living in Iran, you ain't going to take up 10 million in a briefcase and go to another country and buy it. You understand? What they had an electrical, how it's called?
Digital transfer.
Yeah, digital transfer way that they do that. So they banned Iran from even using that. The banking system banned Iran. So after that, Iran money went to nothing, and they wasn't able to buy and sell nation worldwide because just that right there. So that's showing you what it's talking about.
Hey, didn't we just read it said all the kings of the earth would drink of the wine? That's what we just read, right? Now let's say, because we got people running around talking about the chip. Okay. Imagine America saying to the Arabs or to Russia, we want you to put this electronic device in your head or in your hand. What do you think them nations will do? It's going to be on. It's going to be war. Are you kidding me? You want to implant me with an electronic chip in my head or in my hand? It's going to be, them nations will be, imagine the Arabs. Hell, Allah Akbar, no. So what we're reading now, I'm not saying America's not trying to invent that. They are. But what the Bible is talking about is their policies. Big business, particularly selling the children of Israel. Everybody understand that? So now, let's watch the video with Sarah Bartman. Many times she's often called the Hottentot Venus. You'll find her under that terminology also. Slave from South Africa, brought here. The UK, actually. They had her in freak shows under the name Hottentot Venus. She was used as a tool by the Europeans to reinforce that the black race was oversexed and inferior. She was exhibited 200 times during her stay in London in a building in, what's that word? Piccadilly, a street that was full of various oddities. Englishmen and women paid to see her half-naked body displayed in a 1.5-meter high cage. Go ahead. In 1807, an exhibition was declared scandalous and campaigns were embarked on demanding her release. When her masters, Dunlop and Hendricks Caesar, were brought to trial, they presented a contract with her signature on it, and she testified that she was not mistreated. Her benefits were made more favorable to include greater profit share, better conditions, and warm clothes, but she never saw South Africa again. It is believed that she was forced by her slave masters to sign the document. Not believed, she was! And give that testimony on the day of trial. However, there is no fact to give flesh. Yeah, I want to be a slave and have all these dudes sex me up and rape me all night. Yeah, that made a lot of sense for her to say that. They always treat us like we're stupid. Go ahead, I'm sorry. I'm ranting. Go ahead. In 1814, she was taken to France and sold to Roux, a man who showcased animals. She was exhibited in a cage. Yeah, she really signed to do this stuff. Alongside a rhinoceros. In 1815, she became the object of scientific and medical research. She was studied by French anatomists, zoologists, and physiologists. It was then concluded that she was a link between animals and humans. This formed the bedrock of European ideas about black female sexuality. Play. She was an intelligent woman with an amazing memory. So how intelligent? You see, they say she's intelligent, but she signed a contract to be put in a cage next to a rhinoceros.
Will an intelligent person do that? No. So these people are the devil. Bunch of liars.
Exactly. She was an intelligent woman with an amazing memory. She recalled faces easily, and in addition to her native language, she spoke Dutch, passable English, and a bit smattering of French. Go ahead. As a result of pressure and dehumanizing conditions, she took to drinking as a solace. It's not that she took to drinking. They gave her alcohol to sedate her. That's what they were doing. And participated in her exhibitions half drunk and under the influence of alcohol. She later resorted to prostitution. No, she did not. They're making it seem like she, as a slave, hey, I want to go out and be a prostitute. No, they were raping her. That's what they were doing. She was in a cage. They were selling her, pimping her out. She later resorted to prostitution to support herself in 1840. She was she was a slave. She was paid meager amounts for her performance at the exhibitions. So prostitution was a source of money for her upkeep. Oh, God. Hey, wait a minute. Y'all saw the movie, this first one came to mind. Kill Bill. Y'all saw Kill Bill? Remember the dude was paying the dudes to have sex with her while she was unconscious? That's what Esau was doing. It's the same like the pimp game, the same thing. Go ahead. I'm sorry. She died in 1816 at age 26. The real cause of her death is still unknown. I can't stand the lies these people do. She died of an inflammatory disease. It's an STD that they said she signed up for and wanted to do this. Are you kidding me? She died of an inflammatory disease, but the cause of this disease is where the argument lies. Some say it was a sexually transmitted disease. Yes! Called syphilis, as it was prevalent then. After her death, Sarah Bartman, remember she's from South Africa, remained an object of imperialist scientific investigation. What's that word? Cuvier? Cuvier obtained her body from the local police and dissected her body. He made a plaster cast of her and stored her brain and genitals in a jar. In the name of science, her sexual organs and brain were displayed in the Musée de l'Homme Museum of Man in Paris in 1974. They took down the display but still did not return her body to her homeland.
In another video, they did a mock of Sarah Bartman's body with a cake. And they cut her body up and they were eating the parts of her body in the cake. That's reflective of what they just had up on the screen where they said her body was dissected. See, when they had that cake thing there was probably some Negroes around and not realizing that when white folks do things like this, there's history connected to it. They're just not just doing it. When somebody took the time to make that cake like her body and then cut it up and dissect it right there, and you just thought they were just making a cake or something. They knew exactly what they were doing. So as they were cutting it up, they was all reflected back to what they really did to this woman in history.
Right, and based upon what we're reading here, what she be called today is called a video vixen. They run through them, they floss their behind around. That's your Rihanna today. That's your Nicki Minaj today. That's your Beyonce today. That's who she is today. They run, not saying that they ran through, who know, Lord knoweth, but these female rappers in particular have to sleep with a lot of these dudes and they catch a lot of stuff. And they end up being passed around. The more they sleep around, the more they get paraded around, the more famous they become. And that's what happened with the sister right here.
They call them oversexed and all that other business, because that's what you see.
Inferior, it's the same thing.
Same mess.
Right. Hey, can you read...
Gloria Stephens as well, her too.
Can you read...
Corinne Stephens, right, yeah.
Can you read Joel 3:3? Because this go exactly with what we read in here. You understand? Because what we was pointing out is that a lot of the people that's in South Africa is Israel. And that's what we're showing, because this sister right here, Sarah Bartman, she came over here as a slave, right? To Europe. You understand? They brought her over here as a slave. So get that and read it real quick.
Joel chapter 3 and verse 3. And they have cast lots for my people and have given a boy for an harlot.
So wasn't this sister from South Africa? Did they cast lots for her? Yes. You understand? She was bought as a slave and bought over in Europe. Read on.
And sold a girl for wine.
And sold a girl for what?
For wine.
You remember we just said that, we just read there that she used to drink wine, that she became an alcoholic. No, they gave her the wine to drink, and they were drinking the wine and having sex and having fun with her. That's what they was doing. All right? Read that again.
And sold a girl for wine that they might drink.
So that's what they did with our sisters, man. They drink with them. When they bought you all as slaves, they drank wine. They gave you all wine to sedate you all, and they had sex with you all, have fun with you all. That's what they did. They raped you all.
They do.
That's what they.
That's what I want you to
That's what they
understand.
do now, and that's what they're doing now too. Exactly.
Think about being 26, and that's the end of your life.
Mm-hmm.
How many of you women remember when you were 26? How long ago was that? You don't have to put that out there, because a lot of you are ashamed of your age, which is ridiculous. You shouldn't be ashamed of your age. Age is a beautiful thing. So our sister Sarah, she probably wish she could have lived past 26. But y'all get the point, though. I can't. 26, man. Shoot, that's more than half my life ago.
What year was she bought here? Said I missed it. What year was she bought here? I forgot.
18 something.
That's 200 years ago. That wasn't long ago.
When was it? What did it say?
Late 1700s.
Okay, play the video. Due to public outcry in South Africa, her remains to be returned to South Africa in 2002. Her vagina and brain were buried with her frail skeleton in hanky. She was given a burial of respect by her people on August 9th, 2002. She was buried on August 9th, 2002. The Women's Day in South Africa, which is often declared a public holiday. So, if y'all get a chance, there's a movie called Black Starlet. I always talk about it. Can you Google that for me, Black Starlet? I know some of you got dreams of foolishness.
Yeah, you got some sisters say they want to be models.
Yeah.
To be a model in this society, you got to do some evil stuff, man. You know, you fathers that got young girls and bringing up with that kind of ideology, you're simple as hell.
Yeah, this is Juanita Brown. She's the one that stars in it. I don't know if you could blow that up bigger. Blow it up big. See, it says, they set a high price for stardom. Was it worth it? That's the film that shows you that she wanted to be a movie star so bad she had to sleep with the producer. The end of the movie, she sleeps with the Edomite, and she's in bed, and then she gets up to get dressed, and he says, "My dear, what are you doing?" She says, "I'm getting dressed." She said, "Our deal was if I sleep with the producer, I can become a star." He says, "My dear, there are 36 producers." And it was all in line.
All in the hallway, coming in the room one by one.
Yep. So that's the same, very similar thing with Sarah Bartman. So now, we're going to go to, give me the next video now.
This girl here was the first Negro to show up at Central High School the day that a federal court ordered it integrated. She was followed in front of the school by an angry crowd, many of them shouting epithets at her.
1957, Alabama. In the United States, black Americans are challenging racial segregation. They're physically attacked and defied by Southern politicians.
All the people of the South are in favor of segregation. And Supreme Court or no Supreme Court, we are going to maintain segregated schools down in Dixie.
1957, South Africa. Segregation is being extended by a white minority government, afraid of being swamped.
Do you think that the South African government's racial policy is right?
I really do, because we cannot mix with the lower nations at the moment, unless they are cultivated and educated and so on.
Do you feel yourself that the white minority can continue to maintain their position?
Most decidedly. Most decidedly.
Forever?
Forever.
This is the story of the fight for equal rights in two different countries. In both South Africa and the southern states of America, black men and women faced segregation that was backed by the force of law. The circumstances were very different, but in both countries, change only came after ordinary people took their protest onto the streets. It took nearly 10 more years in the United States for blacks to achieve the same legal rights as whites. In South Africa, it would take nearly half a century. In the land of the free, slavery had been ended 90 years before, and the United States Constitution promised equality before the law. But in the 1950s in the South, where 10 million blacks lived, it was the state laws that counted. The daily lives of the black minority were governed by a mesh of local laws still enforced to keep blacks and whites apart.
1957, it was government-sanctioned racism. You had formal barriers to jobs, to freedom of movement. The Constitution of the United States did not protect every citizen.
People were starting to talk about integration, but white supremacists like the Ku Klux Klan played on popular fears of what it could bring.
They want to throw white children and colored children into the melting pot of integration, out of which will come a conglomerated, mulatto, mongrel class of people. Both races will be destroyed in such a movement.
The 13 million black South Africans were the majority, but they had few rights in their own country. 3 million whites had the best land and the wealth, and blacks weren't allowed to vote.
I think the natives left to the people who know how to handle them certainly is a fine fellow. I've had no trouble. I've been on this farm for 4 years now, and quite frankly, I haven't prosecuted one single boy. There was no need for it.
Black South Africans kept the farms and factories going, but the growing number of blacks in the cities was feared and resented by the whites. Christina Hadebi worked as a maid in Johannesburg.
They wouldn't let me use their plates and cups. I had my own enamel plate and an empty tin can as a cup. There was a dog's kennel out at the back, and my dishes were put next to the dog. It was as though I was a dog myself. They treated the dog better than a black person. As a black, you were the scum of the earth. You worked for these people. You cooked for them. They ate your food. But they despised you.
Ek is 'n Afrikaner. My verhaal is die verhaal van 'n nuwe volk met 'n nuwe taal op nuwe bodem ontstaan.
The majority of the whites were descendants of Europeans who'd settled in southern Africa 300 years before. The Afrikaners had their own language, their own political party, and their own church, which taught that white superiority and rule over blacks was the will of God. Nico Smith was a theology student and a true believer.
They were the inferior people. They were the strange people. They had a different culture. And I also, to a certain extent, believed that they were the cursed people, of whom the Bible says that they were the descendants of Ham, and they were cursed. And so they must be the laborers. And I couldn't imagine that one should ever really associate with them or even touch them.
So, from there. So, what I wanted y'all to see with that, we're going to come back to this video, is that the things that our people went through here during the civil rights era was the same thing our people was going through in South Africa. Give me Revelation 11 and 8. Revelation 11 and 8. Now, a lot of time, what Esau is hidden the history of what happened before slavery. During the time of the Middle Ages, when everyone talks about the Moors, the word Moors simply means blacks or Negroes. That's all it means. It is not a racial identifier. The Moors were Israelites. You had Islamic Moors, you had Christian Moors, and you had Jew Moors. Okay, meaning Jew blacks, Christian blacks, and Muslim blacks. That's all it's talking about. That is the best kept secret. When they conquered us, systematically starting with Rome, Spain, Portugal, so forth and so on. If we discussed them in the classes before. Then commenced the transatlantic slave trade. Read me that.
Revelation chapter 11, verse 8. And their dead bodies.
The dead bodies is making reference to the two kingdoms, Judah and Israel. When you read the verses above it, because I know some of you brothers like to read, sisters too, you'll be reading about the two prophets, and it alludes to Moses and Elijah. Moses and Elijah represents the law and the testimony, the prophets. which represents, it's a similitude of the two kingdoms. That's what it's making reference to. So read it again. So the reason I put that out there, because you will read Christian commentaries and they'll talk about Moses and Elijah and then say, oh, well, in the last days, there's going to be two great guys that's going to walk through Jerusalem and do all this stuff. No. It's talking about, it's a similitude. It's symbolic of Judah and Israel, the two kingdoms, as it says in Zechariah. So read verse 8 again. All I want is verse 8.
And there dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified.
So this is making reference to America. Our dead bodies, meaning we're spiritually dead, our bodies lay here in the great city is America. Notice this part, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt. America is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt. What I want to pull out of that is the Egypt part. Okay, this place is spiritual Egypt. Why? Because just like in ancient Egypt, the 12 tribes were captive there, so are we here today. Can you pull up the dollar bill for us real quick? Dollar bill, y'all. Just to show you that the Masons of this society, the founding forefathers of this country, witches, thank you for that word, witches, warlocks. Yeah, I want us on the screen, though. Thank you, Lava. We appreciate you. We want to show on the screen, I want the other side. Give me the back. Okay, right there, showing you, thank you, blow that up big, that America knows that this place is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt. This is why on my left, which may be your right, it says Anuit Coeptus, okay, with the all-seeing eye of Ra over the pyramid, okay? That's our enterprise of success. Novus Ordo Seclorum means new world order. Novus means new, ordo means order, Seclorum means world. So the fact that they have the all-seeing eye of Ra comes from ancient Egypt, the pyramid from ancient Egypt. Bottom of the pyramid, 1776, that was the establishing of the United States of America. Pull up the Washington Monument for me, please. Right, that is a real obelisk, okay, which symbolizes a penis. It is a phallus from ancient Egypt. So the Masons or witches of the society, when they set all these things up, they know that this place is spiritually called Egypt, as the Bible says. It's us to bring our understanding up to what this Bible is saying. So now, what I want to do, watch this. There's more relations between ancient Egypt and America than what we normally talk about. Go back to the video, Jim Crow.
16-year-old Ernest Green tried to go to school again, this time with an armed escort.
We were in a station wagon. In the front was an Army Jeep with a machine gun mount. The Jeep let us out. We got out. A cordon of soldiers surrounded us. We went down this walk, up those steps. It really was an exhilarating feeling that you had finally accomplished something. You could see the cameras and the people across the street, and that all of it was focused on the 9 of us going to this school. It was the realization that this was not the end, this was just the beginning.
Little Rock was a symbolic victory, though thousands of schools stayed segregated. As the civil rights movement spread across the country, it showed how mass action could succeed where court orders on their own had failed. Black Americans found they could start to change things when they joined together to boycott shops or employers who discriminated. At whites-only restaurants, they adopted sit-in tactics. In Tennessee, Bernard Lafayette was one of the protesters.
And would take seats quietly at the lunch counter. You would not say anything to anybody, but sat there until you asked to be served. There was the waitress who was very panicky, walking up and down and very confused about what to do, and very clear that she was not going to serve us.
I'm sorry, our management does not allow us to serve niggers in here.
Then there were these fellows with the ducktail haircuts, and they were walking behind us, so they would make cat calls. They would say, "What are you doing in here, jungle bunnies? You know, get out of here. You're not going to get served in here."
and we sat at the counters. And I was praying when this lady, white lady, came and she put her cigarette out on my arm. So I calmed myself down. While I was calming down, she lit the rest of her matches and pulled my poncho out and dropped the lighted matches down my back.
Paul LaPrade was pulled off the seat of the lunch counter, and he was kicked and beaten on the floor. And so they decided they were going to make an example out of him because he was white.
So now you saw that. We couldn't sit in their restaurants and eat. Now watch the next video. Give me, the name of it is called 18 Jones. Watch this. Yeah, they arrested the ones that got beat up. They didn't arrest the... But watch this. It's only 2 minutes, but watch this.
Dining out was just zero with my family and with most African Americans because we didn't want to be treated that way. We didn't want to have to, well, some restaurants wouldn't have served you, period. You couldn't go in some of the restaurants at all and get anything. So we developed a friendship of fellowshipping from house to house or in each other's yards and things. And we didn't have but one park. And that park would be full on holidays.
What park is that?
Chickasaw Park. And it would be full, so we developed the friendship of each other's yards and enjoyed each other's cooking. And, you know, come on over today, Jones or Johnson, and bring a dish. So that was how we created our own country club and our own enjoyment for holidays and all. And naturally, you know, we'd have the big watermelons and the big fruits and all the cantaloupes and everything. And we'd have ribs and fried chicken and corn and sweet potatoes. We'd have all that good stuff. Greens was a specialty. So we didn't think about it. It didn't bother us that you said you don't want us to come to your restaurant. That didn't make a difference. We don't want to come. And I heard my mother say a lot of times that, you know, she didn't want to be able just to sit next to a white person. She said, I don't want to have to just be able just to go in a restaurant and eat. She said, but I don't want them to tell me that I can't. That it's a public place. If it's public, I'm supposed to be able to go in there. I don't care what I look like. She said, but since they don't want me in there, they don't want my money. And that was the way, you know, we grew up with things. Mama just defined of bowing down. My mother would not bow down to no segregation. She just would not do that.
Now, you might ask yourself, what does the segregation have to do with Egypt? It has everything to do with Egypt. Get Genesis 43. Genesis 43, verse 32. Our forefather Joseph told us something about ancient Egypt.
The book of Genesis, chapter 43, verse 32. And they set on for him by himself, and for them by themselves, and for the Egyptians, which did eat with him by themselves, because the Egyptians might not eat bread with the Hebrews, for that is an abomination unto the Egyptians.
So a lot of us thought it strange. The ancient Egyptians didn't eat with us either. So when we came to this place, which is spiritually called Egypt, they didn't eat with us either. They said it's an abomination to sit with them and eat. So that's what the Lord means when he says this place is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt. Yeah, what the hell is old Hotep about? Give me Deuteronomy 26. Lava, you going to say something?
Yes, sir, if I can. Yeah, you notice that when there was in a restaurant, you know how these young students was able to use their body as a shield. You understand? Just for their movement, for whatever movement they believed to sit with the white man, there was a benefit, whatever their mind was going through. But you notice that they use their body for the shield, right? Us now that is in the truth, the Lord has opened our spirit to see that we are the Israelites. That we have to play the same role. You know what the role we playing in these streets? Because our people don't believe they are the Israelites. Our people don't believe that, according to the Bible is our history books. We put our life on the lines by showing our people that if we can repent, you can repent. You understand? Because we used to live the life you live. You understand? So, in a spiritual level of it, that's what in Psalm 94 verse 16 is letting us know that who will stand up for me? God is asking, is calling real men. It's real men who's going to stand up for this truth. I tell you straight. You understand? When the Lord about to win this thing a little higher, you're going to see who will among you. You're going to see who's all about shalom, most high in Christ bless. You're going to see that. Because guess what? That day, the Lord going to say what you made of. If you would apply the laws and the statutes and commandments, they stand up for him. These are the things that we tell brothers. These are the things we tell sisters. You understand? We came in from a low state of minds. You understand where we came from? We didn't think about ourselves and being nobody. The Lord is calling you the Israelite.
You know, during that era, that was Martin Luther King's era, MLK. You know, long time ago, I look at that and say, them guys are stupid as hell. Them Edomites beat their behind like that. But that was a necessary evil, because by them doing that and going through that hell, that gave us the ability to go out in them streets and teach. Because if the laws are not passed, they would have beat our faces in today. They would have you hanging from trees. So even though it was a passive, weak, docile state we were in at that time, for those rights, it benefited us now. So we can badmouth Martin Luther King to a degree, but it was a necessary evil at the same time.
Get Deuteronomy 26:6 about the Egyptians.
Deuteronomy chapter 26 and verse 6. And the Egyptians evil entreated us and afflicted us and laid upon us hard bondage.
So we read that, and of course we relate it simply to ancient Egypt. But remember, the Bible meanings, they are symbolic and twofold sometimes. So the Egyptian we read about there, it also goes for what we read the precept in Revelation 11:8, that this place is spiritually called Sodom and what? Egypt. So just like the ancient Egyptians evil entreated us, this white man here evil. Do they evil entreat us, brothers? You better believe it. If you don't know, you better ask somebody. Give me Genesis chapter 50 about our forefather Jacob, relating back to Egypt. Genesis 50, I want to start at verse 1.
Genesis chapter 50 and verse 1. And Joseph fell upon his father's face and wept upon him and kissed him. And Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father. And the physicians embalmed Israel. And 40 days were fulfilled for him.
Remember, we were in Egypt at this time. Joseph, our forefather, was the father of Ephraim and Manasseh. Okay, Jacob is the forefather. Let me get my words right. Jacob is about to die, and Joseph, who was second in command in Egypt, remember his name was changed to Zaphnath-Paneah, okay? And he had all authority in Egypt under Pharaoh. Now his father, Jacob, our forefather, is about to die. What verse was that, Captain Isaac, you at?
We're at verse 3.
Read verse 3 again.
And 40 days were fulfilled for him.
No, read verse 2, I'm sorry.
Verse 2. And Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father, and the physicians embalmed Israel.
So the burial custom in ancient Egypt, they embalmed people, okay? That's when they took your innards out, and I don't know what they put in there, but I'm not too familiar with the embalming process, where they put all those chemicals on you and all that. But anyway, our forefather Jacob was done the same way as ancient Egypt does theirs. Read on.
And 40 days were fulfilled for him, for so are fulfilled the days of those which are embalmed. And the Egyptians mourned for him 70 days.
70 days. Go ahead.
And when the days of his mourning were past, Joseph spake unto the house of Pharaoh, saying, If now I have found grace in your eyes, speak, I pray you, in the ears of Pharaoh, saying, My father made me swear, saying, Lo, I die in my grave which I have digged for me in the land of Canaan. There shalt thou bury me.
So before Jacob died, he told his son Joseph, who was second in command in Egypt, bury me in the land of Canaan, which Canaan's name was changed to what, brothers? Israel. Go ahead.
Now therefore let me go up, I pray thee, and bury my father, and I will come again. And Pharaoh said, Go up and bury thy father, according as he had made thee swear.
So from there, jump down to verse 25. That's what I want. Verse 25.
Verse 25. And Joseph took an oath of the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and ye shall carry up my bones from hence.
So Joseph also, he told them, his brothers, he says, when I die, when you leave, when the Lord visits you, when you leave Egypt, take my bones with you to the land of Canaan, to Israel. Read it again.
And Joseph took an oath of the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and he shall carry up my bones from hence.
Go ahead.
So Joseph died, being 110 years old, and they embalmed him, and he was put in a coffin in Egypt.
Can you Google coffins, Egyptian coffins? A lot of times we fail to see things as the Bible records them. Okay? Remember, he was second in command in Egypt. Okay? So this is a coffin of Egypt. He was buried in one of these. Everybody see that? And they don't show you that on TV. So when Joseph was buried, he was put inside one of these. From there, watch this. Give me Exodus 13 and 19.
The book of Exodus.
Wait, let me get it. No, I'm not as fast as you. Exodus 13 and 19. Go ahead.
Exodus 13 and 19. And Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had straitly sworn the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and he shall carry up my bones away hence with you.
So when we left Egypt, through the Red Sea and all that, we carried our forefather Joseph with us. He was in the coffin we took with us, okay? From there, go to Joshua chapter 24 and verse 32.
The book of Joshua, chapter 24 and verse 32. And the bones of Joseph, which the children of Israel brought up out of Egypt, buried they in Shechem, in a parcel of ground which Jacob bought of the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem, for 100 pieces of silver. And it became the inheritance of the children of Joseph.
So it was under Joshua's rulership that Jacob was buried. Moses was not allowed to enter the land. Okay, so from there, let's go to Isaiah chapter 30. Let me see what time it is. Isaiah chapter 30, and we'll start at verse 1. So we did a little history regarding our forefathers in Egypt. We did some searching regarding our people in South Africa. We showed you the correlation between how the Egyptians refused to eat with us, which correlates perfectly during the time of the civil rights, during the time of segregation, Jim Crow, black coats, so forth, and so on. So Isaiah 30 and 1, please. Let's read that from there.
Isaiah 30 and 1. Woe to the rebellious children.
So that's us. Our people are the rebellious children. Many times we don't like to admit it, but we are a rebellious people. Go ahead.
Saith the Lord, that take counsel, but not of me.
And anytime our people take counsel, we go to Democrats, we go to Republicans, or we go to Christians in the church. But we never seek the Lord. See, what does the Lord's counsel say? The Bible. We hate this counsel. Go ahead.
But not of me. And that cover with a covering.
And we cover with a covering, meaning we cover ourselves in democracy. We cover ourselves with Republicans. We cover ourselves with white man Jesus. Go ahead.
But not of my spirit.
But we don't cover with the Spirit of God, which comes from this Bible. Go ahead.
That they may add sin to sin.
And when we fail to seek the counsel of God from the Bible, we add sin to sin. This is what makes us a rebellious people. Come on.
That walk to go down into Egypt.
See that part? That walk to go down to Egypt. Now, Isaiah was talking about the Israelites during the reign. He said when Nebuchadnezzar was about to come, he was warning Israel not to be rebellious, to walk down, to make a covenant with the Egyptians. Go ahead.
And have not asked at my mouth to strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh, and to trust in the shadow of Egypt.
So now I'm going to give you the two understandings with that verse right there. When Nebuchadnezzar was on the rise, Isaiah warned the people. He said, you got to go with Nebuchadnezzar. Don't go down to Egypt to strengthen yourselves with Pharaoh. But Israel was rebellious. Said, we're going to make a league with the Egyptians. And the Egyptians will strengthen us, meaning help us fight against Nebuchadnezzar. So, what does that got to do with us today? Everything. Notice it says, and to trust in the shadow of Egypt. Y'all see that word shadow, right? Mm-hmm. Your shadow is a similitude of you. It's not the real you, but it's a similitude of you. America is that shadow of ancient Egypt. Everybody understand what I'm saying? Read.
Therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be your shame.
So just like in ancient times, when Nebuchadnezzar came against our people, Egypt was our shame. Why? Because they couldn't defeat Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar waxed everybody, defeated Egypt, destroyed Israel, put us into slavery. So likewise here today. Read verse 3 one more again.
Therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be your shame.
We trust in this white man here in America, this spiritual place called Egypt. This place spiritually called Egypt. We trust in this place. And the Bible foretells, it says, therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be your shame. Go ahead.
And the trust in the shadow of Egypt, your confusion.
Trusting in the shadow of Egypt, which is this place here, shall be our confusion. This is why we always know justice, no peace. And there's just the latest one on the news. I forgot this brother's name. The brother who ran from the cop, and the cop shot him in the back several times, then dropped the taser next to his body. I forgot his name. What's his name? Walter Scott. And tried to make like Walter Scott was fighting against him. So it's in court now. And one juror, all you need is one juror not to agree. So they said it's going to be a hung jury. So on the news today, they said, listen, there's one juror holding on. He said he will not convict a cop. He said he refuses to do it. So the judge says, go back and deliberate again. He sent the judge a note. He says, I'm not changing my opinion. I said what I said. So now black people, the lawyers, the attorneys is on the news saying, I believe in justice. I believe in the American judicial system. We gonna keep this hope alive. I'm like, hold your breath. You just keep on holding that breath. Read that again. Hold on, y'all was going to say something.
Let's keep on going. What, Christmas is coming around the corner.
Yeah.
They're going to forget all about that thing, man.
Read on.
Verse 3. Therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be your shame, and the trust in the shadow of Egypt your confusion. For his princes were at Zoan, and his ambassadors came to Hanes.
Right, these were the Egyptian leaders. Go ahead.
They were all ashamed of a people that could not profit them.
So just like our forefathers, the Israelites, were ashamed of the Egyptians that could not profit us, likewise today. This place spiritually called Egypt, we shall be ashamed of a people that cannot profit us. Go ahead.
Nor being help nor profit, but a shame and also a reproach.
Go ahead.
The burden of the beasts of the south into the land of trouble and anguish, from whence come the young and old lion, the viper and fiery flying
Poison,
serpent.
snakes, missiles. Go ahead.
They will carry their riches upon the shoulders of young asses, and their treasures upon the bunches of camels, to a people that shall not profit them. For the Egyptians shall help in vain.
See that part? For the Egyptians shall help in vain. Because people get excited when they see during the civil rights time, they big up them white folks that was marching with us, sitting at the counters with us. They go, yeah, see the white men, some of them was helping us. They ain't all bad. That's what our people do. Read that verse again.
Hey, you notice that they showed you the white boy getting beat up.
Yeah.
You know, Negroes went crazy over that.
Exactly.
They ate it up.
For the Egyptians shall help in vain.
Y'all see that? The Egyptians shall help in vain. Go ahead.
And to no purpose.
And to no purpose. Go ahead.
Therefore have I cried concerning this. Their strength is to sit still.
Our strength, brothers and sisters, you know what it means to sit still? Shut up and learn. That's what it means to sit still. When you sit still, you are studying, you are learning, you are quiet. That's what God said our strength is. Learn his word, and that's our strength.
Shalom, Israel. I'm Elder Nathaniel, Israel United in Christ. YouTube likes to shut our channels down, as some of you have noticed, ever so often. Subscribing to join IUIC will assure you will always stay connected to our YouTube accounts. We want to do our best to make sure this truth gets out. Please click and join our subscriber YouTube channel called Join IUIC to stay linked to all of our videos. So again, if please make sure you subscribe to this Join IUIC channel to get your latest updates on all our YouTube channels. Shalom.